Hi, I'm Krutika, and today's conversation is with Navin. I'm not particularly religious or spiritual myself, but I've always been fascinated by people who feel a deep devotion to something bigger than themselves. Navin is one of those people. He's undertaken several pilgrimages, and one in particular, his visit to Mount Kailash in Tibet, is a testament to his physical endurance, mental resilience, and ability to withstand extreme conditions, all in the pursuit to a higher connection with God. And he hasn't just done it once, he's done it twice within the last 5 to 6 years. We all search for peace in different ways, but there's often a common thread: reconnecting with the basics, and it's rarely materialistic. For Navin, that sense of solace has come through his spiritual adventures, and I'm truly in awe of what he's been able to accomplish. Hi Navin, so glad to have you on my podcast. How are you today?
Hi, Krutika. I'm very well. Thank you very much. And delighted to be asked to join your podcast. It's so wonderful. I've listened to your other episodes and it's great.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you've dipped into some of my episodes, and I'm delighted to have you because I know we're going to be discussing a fascinating journey that you've been on. But before we even come on to that, today's one of those weekends in March where the sun's been shining. Have you enjoyed the
Indeed.
sunshine this weekend?
Yes, I have. I was out early this morning. I went for a walk. I try and do 4 and 5 kilometers every morning, which I did this morning. So let me just get it done. So it's done. And also clear my head so I can talk to you nicely, hopefully. Fingers crossed,
Oh, that's amazing. Typically, what I do before my podcast recordings, as well as I do go for a walk, but I'm going to hold my hands up. I haven't had a chance to go for my walk this morning, but I do my morning yoga, which always helps clear my head as well. And I'm so glad you touched on the fact that you went for a 4 or 5 kilometer walk, because the adventure, I suppose, we're going to be discussing for your journey today involves that kind of physical fitness, doesn't it? So,
Very much
even
so.
before we come on to that, for our listeners, Navin, can you just introduce who you are?
Well, it's an interesting one, but I suppose as I'm now, if you like, I'll introduce myself as I'm a family man. I love to spend time with my children and my grandchildren. My youngest grandson is 15 months old, and eldest is 22 years old. And I've got six in between, so it's a wide range, which means it's a lot of fun. I motivate them, and I really interact with them quite a lot. So that's what I do. I love to interact with my family and my friends. I was always a workaholic, and I'm so-called the go-to person. People come to me, and I'm really delighted to facilitate and help, etc. Them. I was born in Africa, so I love nature. So that's the other thing that I enjoy. Uh, my backdrop, was East Africa, rivers, mountains, wildlife, serene surroundings. Yeah, that's what I am.
I love that you've spotlighted that you're a grandfather of such a spectrum of grandchildren from 22 right through to 15 months. What do you love the most about being a grandfather?
Oh, it is the motivational part. It's really interacting with them. And each one is so different. So I look at the 15-month-old, and he's got these things that I can do with them now, and I observe now, which I perhaps didn't have enough time to do with my own children. And I sort of see how they grow, and it's just lovely. It's just that it blends in with my philosophy as well, to try and be closer to people. And I think yeah, it's great. It's great. It's lovely.
You also touched on the fact that you've grown up in sort of Africa and you love nature. And I guess that feeds into a little bit about what we're going to be discussing in your journey. Because, like I mentioned, you've been on some great adventures. So before we even come on to that, how does sort of spirituality and religion play a part in your life? I guess I want to start with that before we come on to some of those adventures, which have been largely spiritual adventures.
I certainly believe in God. Yeah. Uh, I would say I'm spiritual. Spirituality, to me, in essence, is one's own beliefs and practices that one follows, your own experiences of the divine, and how you connect to the divine Paramatma. Uh, so I would say, yeah, definitely spiritual, and that's what I enjoy.
Were there any influences that shaped your views about religion and spirituality? Was there something that kind of piqued your interest in that space, basically?
Growing up, both sides of the family, my mother's and father's side, were spiritual and definitely religious. They did not impose that on me. Uh, but my mother's side, I suppose, was far more religious than my father's side of the family. My grandfather, who I grew up with, I spent my first 17 years with my grandfather, and I was very close to him, and he was very close to me. I was the eldest grandson in the family. He was definitely spiritual. He did his pratna every morning at 6 o'clock, and I did it with him. And then occasionally I'd walk along with him. I hold his finger, and he'd take me to the mandir, to the temple. I do pratna with him there, and so I suppose I got influence in that sense from him. My mother was an amazingly educated lady, very very knowledgeable, definitely very religious, but she was very practical as well, and she would tell us the stories about religion, what have you, when we were growing up. And with my siblings, I was the eldest, and then my sister was 2 years younger than me, and my other two brothers. So we'd sit down and listen to the stories, and also, you participated in festivities, festivals, Holi and Diwali, and you understood those things. And in North especially, we believe in Mataji a lot. We have a lot of affection there, and so that really was perhaps a significant influencing factor. And then my own research and reading, as I was growing up, I suppose that's what definitely influenced where I am today.
Your adventures have taken you on a few pilgrimages to India, and I know one of the pilgrimages you've done has been your visit to Mount Kailash, which I sort of want to deep dive a little bit into. So, can you start by telling us what is the significance of Mount Kailash as a place of spirituality or pilgrimage?
So just to go back a bit, my first pilgrimage was when I was 38. I wanted to take my parents for a pilgrimage. They were in their sort of, I suppose, late 50s. So I basically undertook a pilgrimage with my mother, father, my mother's mother, my nanny, and my youngest son. He was 2.5 then, and we went up to North India, and we went to a place called Haridwar. As Haridwar stands, Hari is God, Dwar is door, gateway to God, sort of. And this is now, we're talking about early 90s, 19, in fact, it was 1990. And, it was one of those things where traveling was difficult because, tourism hadn't quite arrived in India. But it was great. So we went to Haridwar with my parents, and my nanny, and then we went to Rishikesh. Rishikesh is now known as the yoga center of the earth, and we wanted to go on and actually visit the Char Dham, which is the, if you like, the most holy places for pilgrimages in those days. But there was a snowfall and landslide, and we couldn't do that. But whilst we were at Haridwar, we stayed in this ashram called Shanti Kunj, which is the Gayatri uh, Parivar, which is nowadays is quite huge. It's quite amazingly big. Uh, and they in fact run a Vedic university over there. Now it's quite big, do Sanskrit and everything else. And we stayed at this ashram. I mean, it was quite basic, it was freezing cold. We were there in January. The temperatures were -7 or something, and we had to sleep on a plinth, in an ashram, on a bed sheet. I mean, I was absolutely frozen. I still remember that day. It was a long time ago. But in the morning, you got up and did havan and what have you, uh, and that was great. At 3 o'clock in the morning, and you warmed up because you were sitting near the fire. And then what you did was you actually went up to the hillside and looked at the river, see the sunrise. And then in the afternoons, there were seminars. And this is where I first heard about Kailash, and basically, and that whetted my appetite to sort of say, well, and as you said, what is Kailash, So to come to your question, Kailash in Hindu mythology is the abode of our god of gods, abode of Shiva. So it says it's a mountain which is about 22,000 feet above sea level. It's now situated in Tibet. Uh, as, and every scripture that you read, every Vedantic philosophy that is narrated talks about Kailash being the abode of Shiva. Shiva and Parvati and family always sort of lived there. Uh, and there are quite amazing stories about Kailash. That is it a man-made thing? Is it created by? It's not natural, perhaps. It's artificial, maybe, but it is bang in the middle of the Himalayas range, throughout. Uh, and it is seen as a mountain. It's just one of those things that you know I heard about in my early 30s. I got very interested, and then when I went to this ashram, I interacted with the people who were basically running the ashram, who had been to Kailash, and they said, "Where is the place to go? It's something that you must do." So that's where I actually, if you like, heard about Kailash in the first instance.
When was the first time you actually visited Kailash? You mentioned it piqued your interest in your early 30s. Did you kind of then decide you wanted to visit that, let's say in your 40s, or did you wait a lot longer before you actually went to visit?
Yeah, I waited a lot longer. Why life takes over. Yeah, kids are growing up, and they had to go to school. And I mentioned my youngest son was 2.5, so schooling started. I started my career, and I was got busy, and the intention was there, but I had to wait a long time. And then an opportunity arose, 5-6 years ago, and I decided to take that adventure. The trip to Kailash, the pilgrimage, would require a significant amount of time, a lot of preparation, and therefore, it's one of those things you put off. You want to do a shorter one, so I did a lot of pilgrimages in between, which were much shorter. But the Kailash waited until I was, if you like, ready. And the calling came. I think what they say about trip to Kailash, very few people actually go there, and it and the guys you talk to, they said it's the call that comes from above. And I think the calling was coming much later than I intended. And the great thing, Krutika, it was that when I decided to go, and I asked my wife, I said, look, I'm looking to go to Kailash. She said, good luck. It's a tough journey. The terrain is hard. The weather conditions can be tricky. And we'd heard stories about people who had been there, etc. Uh, and, and and she said, yeah, I hope you do it. And then I had this conversation we were going with a group, with the group leader, and I got her on the phone, and she's listening. And all of a sudden, she said, "You know what? I'm going to come with you." And then my son Rajiv, eldest son, he'd just been to Kilimanjaro, a few months earlier, and he's listening. He says, this sounds like a great adventure. Why not I join you?" I think quietly he was thinking, I'll look after my dad if I'm there, just to make sure, because it was difficult. But so basically, I think that it was a question of, as I said, the calling. The time was that it allowed me to do the journey with my wife and my son, which was so special. And it was just great.
You mentioned, that it's very few people go there. It's difficult. I sort of heard you say it can be quite challenging terrain. I guess for someone who's never kind of visited there, can you describe what does the pilgrimage itself entail? Are you hiking up the mountain? Are you going halfway up the mountain? And apologies if that's a silly question. I'm just trying to, I guess, paint a picture for our listeners in terms of what does the pilgrimage itself entail?
Kailash is regarded as very sacred by Hindus, by Buddhists, by Jains and follower of Bon, the Tibetan guys. And because it's so sacred, belief is that you cannot climb Kailash. You do not actually climb the mountain. They're regarded as the cosmic center of universe. And basically, our scriptures say that, it's one of the most auspicious places that one should visit at least once in your lifetime. That clockwise circumnavigation of the mountain purifies the soul, and brings you closer to the Almighty divinity. It enhances your spiritual views, I guess. Uh, it's one of those things that if you can do it, definitely worth doing. So what this journey entails is actually going to the foothills of Kailash. So you trek and you start your journey from wherever. So the 3 or 4 starting points. I'll come to that in a second. And you actually you trek up to the foothills of Kailash, and you go round Kailash. It's called parikrama. circumnavigation clockwise. And the whole idea is that you are actually arriving at the foothills of abode of Shiva. And it is just one of those experiences that, and you're climbing up. So you get up to about 20,000 feet, just slightly above, when you're climbing up. So, and the reason why it is quite difficult is because as you climb up, the altitude, the oxygen level decreases, and therefore you got to be fit, you got to train, and that's why it is so, if you like, a journey which has to be planned properly and managed properly. A lot of people who start the journey don't complete. They get up to the foothills perhaps and come back. Some come back even before getting to the foothills. And then the weather conditions. I mean, when we were there, yeah, I mean, we were very lucky. We had pretty good weather on the whole, but it was still -7, -10, -12, -14. You have snowfalls, you have flooding, you could have heavy rain, you could have landslides, I mean, there could be a variety of reasons why you can't do it. In fact, I remember one of my friends went last year, and they had to come back because the weather conditions was quite difficult. So that particular parikrama itself is 3 days, but the journey starts from Kathmandu. So you actually arrive in Nepal. The whole idea is to get ready for the journey, spiritually, mentally, physically, and then you walk through to acclimatize, because you need to get your body ready to get up to 20,000 feet above sea level, which is quite high.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems like a great achievement. And, you did this 5-6 years ago, you mentioned. Can I just ask, what sort of training did you do in preparation of that? Because it does feel like quite the strain on your bodies.
Yeah, so I mean, we had good guidance from the group leaders. Basically, the whole idea was that there were 3 areas of training, I guess. One, you had to be mentally prepared that I want to do this journey, which is going to be testing, because it's going to be quite difficult. I'm going to be prepared. So you mentally prepare for it. Secondly, you get to train your lungs. You make sure that your oxygen level is good. And one of the key things you do is you actually drink plenty of water. So you're going to train your body to drink and receive plenty of water. When we were up there, also getting near there, we were required compulsorily to drink 4 liters of water each day. So that was the second part. And third was getting you physically fit. I mean, you had to trek, and as you're trekking here at this, at sort of 1,000 feet above sea level is easy. At 20,000, it's very different as you are grading. So the oxygen level, I mean, you really feel the strain. So you have to get physically fit to make sure that you are able to do that. Your legs are capable of actually taking the strain, your body, your breathing, the whole thing.
Yeah. And how, the altitude aspect, I suppose, and this might be a silly question, but where we sort of live, it's not like we're in hilly areas or anything like that. So how are you training for the altitude?
Yeah, obviously it's very difficult to train for that here. So you go as hard as, so we used to go to south of England, where up you can get about 1,000 feet above sea level. So, but the trekking was good because they had steep hills, so you were going up and down. So you were trying to get your legs and muscles working properly. But the reason why the whole journey is 17 days is to give you first 8 or 9 days to acclimatize. So you're gradually moving up, and you're actually doing that whilst you're going through that. So when you start your journey, you're actually asked to train, basically, walk distances, during the day, to try and make sure that you are actually getting used to the oxygen level. And then obviously the medical team is always with you to make sure that your oxygen intake is correct, your oxygen level is right, you're physically okay. They're checking you all the time. And if they feel that it's not right, then they will actually tell you not to continue the journey.
So once you're there, can you walk us through, like, what was the experience like? What did you see? What did you feel? Paint us a little bit of a picture about the experience itself.
So just go back a bit to the beginning. So basically, you start your journey in Kathmandu in Nepal. Most of the groups start there, because Nepal is literally next door to Tibet. And the whole idea there is that you've got to get your visa for China, visa for the group, etc., sorted out. So while you're there, so Kathmandu is a fairly religious place, has been. So, I mean, going back in history, Nepal, Tibet, Bhutan, we're all part of Bharat, we're all part of India, yeah? And so Kathmandu is known as the playground of the gods. And a couple of very old Shiva temples are actually in Kathmandu. So there's a Pashupatinath temple, which is very special, very unique, probably goes back 2,000 years. It's very unique in the sense that it's got a Shiva linga, which has got 4 faces, which is very unusual. So the whole idea is that you actually prepare mentally, that my focus when I'm actually doing this journey is one and one only. I'm actually linking with you, God. I'm linking with you, Shiva. And you actually spend 3 or 4 days in Kathmandu to visit the temples. You start the day early, you get up, you do meditation, then you do pratna for an hour or so, then you do yoga and you exercises. 2 days before you start your journey to Tibet, you do a big havan at 4 o'clock in the morning at Pashupatinath Mandir. The whole group sits there. And havan, as you know, is a connection to the Almighty. It's a bridge between us and up there. You use the fire to actually send out the signal to get the blessings, So you go get your blessings over there. So that's the preparation part. Also, what you eat and what you drink is regulated, so you make sure that you don't eat heavily, you eat little foods, you eat sattvic food, which is basically prepared by the team leaders themselves. They have a team of people who actually prepare that, literally the breakfast, the lunch, and the dinner, and they are with you throughout the journey. So you get prepared mentally, and then you fly to Tibet. And once you get to Tibet, you jump on a coach, which is quite luxurious. That side is quite good. And then you are off on this journey for about 6 days, 7 days to arrive at Mansarovar. Mansarovar is the lake before you get to Kailash, which is I suppose it is the highest freshwater lake on earth. It is regarded as very much the center of universe, a very spiritual center of universe, So you arrive there. So basically, during the 6 days, you're in the bus for quite a while, and you got to make sure that you're drinking your water regularly, and the bus stops, obviously, for obvious reasons, and also buses stop when it stops for lunch. You go on a bit of trekking, so you, again, acclimatize. They make the food while you're trekking and walking and what have you, and then you have your lunch back in the bus, and again they do the same in the evening, and you stay at reasonable hotels, and as you gradually move up, you can feel the strength on your lungs with the oxygen, and the journey is beautiful. Tibet is great place. I mean, you look around as you're driving through, the roads are beautiful now. I mean, you look around, it's absolutely beautiful. Mountains and mountains everywhere. Yeah, you see small bit of wildlife, but apart from that, it's rivers and mountains. The sky changes, the color changes. It's just fabulous, and you're singing, in the coach. You're all together. You're sharing the experiences, but still the focus is Shiva and Kailash. Because you want to get ready mentally, and that's the significant part of the whole journey. So after the 6 days, you arrive at Mansarovar. And as you approach Mansarovar, Krutika, I can't tell you. I can't describe it. I mean, you see the water. I mean, it's tranquil. It's beautiful. It's blue. The bus stops there. You come out, and you see the water, and this is where the fable has it that our scripture says Parvati and Shiva used to play there. They used to swim there. This is where you are. You're actually on that foothill. And you see Kailash at the far, and that's your first glimpse of Kailash. And you just basically get down on your knees, and you pray, and I mean, you're awed. You are just awed. You say, "Wow, I'm here. I'm actually at Mansarovar." And in the old days, you could go and have a dip in the lake. Now that's forbidden, mainly because of environmental reasons and other reasons. They just want to keep it clear. But you can put your feet in it. You can actually spray some water on you. So that's the first stop. It actually is arriving at Mansarovar, and that is fabulous. And what you also do is you do a parikrama. So you go around the Mansarovar lake, which is about 53 kilometers round. You actually go in a bus, which is therefore comfortable. So that's your sort of, if you like, the first glimpse of Kailash at far. And you're actually looking at the west face of it, and you do darshan, and then you're taken to your dormitory, which is you're in a room with 6 or 7 or other 8 people. And the thing to emphasize, it is freezing cold. I mean, here you are, and no heaters. Facilities are sort of okay, I mean, they do their best, but uh, but it is quite tough, and you got to accept what is there. I mean, you're and they're prepared you for the journey. That look, and Chalse, Faust, and Agamse, what it really means is that it will do no matter what it is, and that's what we did.
You've mentioned the sort of temperature. So would you say that was the hardest part of the journey?
Definitely. So I think up to,
Yeah.
up to that stage, it was really the cold, and also you had to have enough stamina because coach journeys are long journeys every day for 5 days. It's quite tiring and exhausting. And in between you're exercising, in between you're doing yoga, in between you're doing meditation and all that. But it's all fun. I tell you, you're doing with the group. You get to know the people. You get to interact with them, and there were people at different ages. I think I was probably the oldest guy there. And that on that trip. Yeah.
So you mentioned the group of people you were with actually. Were they all sort of strangers, I suppose,
Yeah,
before?
never met anybody before. Yeah, never met anybody before. A lot of them were from UK, number from US, a number from Canada,
Mm,
Australia. And the great thing is just we made friends, we bonded well, and I still talk to them regularly. We are in touch with these guys, and we share our experiences. Yes,
yeah.
it's wonderful. So,
Amazing. And do you want to then continue, I guess, with once you, where we had just stopped around your sort of Maneswar doing this sort of 53K kind of circulation, as it were, if that's the right
yeah,
word,
yeah,
around the
yeah.
lake? What happened thereafter?
Okay, so basically that's where your real journey starts. Your Kailash, pilgrimage. The following day you get up quite early in the morning. Bearing in mind the temperature is -7, 8, 9, whatever. You are in the middle of nowhere. There's no heating, etc. So our team of people who actually overnight while we were sleeping went out and, and brought barrels of Kailash water, Mansarovar water rather, and heated it up in the morning for you to have a shower, quick shower for everybody.
Wow. Yeah.
Because the first thing you do, is before you set off to go towards Kailash, is do another havan to Shiva, to basically say, Shiva, we are coming to you, your laps. Please look after us, take care of our fellow trekkers and pilgrimage, yatris as we call them. So we all do havan, and it's just unbelievable because you're sitting there. I mean, I like havan generally anyway because it's the way to connect, as I was saying earlier. And in front of you, at a far distance, you could see the peak of Kailash. A lot depends, on the day. I mean, we had a very clear day. And we did this Havan chanting. So from 6 to about 8, 8:30, we did Havan. And then you actually had a breakfast. And then you were allowed to go and actually back to the shores of the lake. And you spent a few hours there. And the following day, you were taken by the bus to the starting point for your walking journey. Now you're trekking to Kailash Parikrama. So you arrive there, and there you have a choice whether you gonna walk the whole thing or you take a horse with you, and you can take a horse and either jump on a horse from the start, or you can just keep a horse there in case you needed it, or you and walk, alongside. And you have somebody who actually looks after you if you wanted a person who is a trekker as well. So that's your starting point, and you arrive at initial starting point is called Yamdwar. So Yam is
Hmm.
death, the god of death, and he basically has to you go there and do prayers to say, look, bring me back. I'm going for this journey, which is quite challenging, quite difficult. Uh, and then you start walking, and you start off together, uh, and within minutes everybody is dispersed because first of all it's open place, it's huge, it's massive, and then you got mountains all around you. You got river Brahmaputra flowing down on your left hand side, and because people walk at different paces, and you're really very much taking your time. They tell you when you're training not to stop, slow down if you want to view things, but you just keep on walking because otherwise your body will find it difficult to continue. after a while. So you start your walk, and the walk, Krutika, is probably about 6-7 kilometers until you stop for lunch. But it feels like 60 or 70 kilometers because of the altitude. You are now at 18,000 feet above sea level. You're already there. So, maybe at that stage, I think you're 15,000, then you're getting up to the 18,000, So you feel the strain on your body as you're walking through. But I still remember the journey. You know, every step you're looking around and you're seeing this vast open area. And within minutes, you're literally on your own. Rekha had gone. I don't, that's my wife, we left together, and I only saw her when I got to Kailash, because she went at her pace, I was going at my pace, and everybody disperses. You see occasional yatris, pass by, you occasionally stop and take a photograph or two, but you're walking at your pace, and that journey is absolutely serene. It's so beautiful. You're looking at the mountain ranges, you're looking at the river flowing across, uh, and you realize, my God, I'm just a speck in this huge universe. And the whole thing is undescribable in a way, because you're just feeling that, I never appreciated nature, in its density. It's so great, so lovely. And you keep on walking, and after a while you realize that actually, what, I'm getting tired, and you sort of, we need to motivate yourself. Where is Kailash, and you carry on and you carry on, and somebody will pass you or you'll pass somebody and they say, oh, carry on, buddy. They encourage each other, and then after a short rest, you carry on. I am after Kailash, and this is the day you have been waiting for. Your preparation, which would have started 7, 8, 9 months earlier, and then the 17 days or 10 days that you've been walking through, this is what you are working for, so you carry on. And the afternoon became, I remember, was quite difficult because, you'd been walking now for a good few hours, and you had to stop for lunch. So that sort of gave you a bit of energy, but you were feeling it difficult. And again, you're carrying on, but you're watching the scenery, you're actually taking it all in. And then at the distance, you see a monastery, which has been there for centuries. And you now know that I'm actually near the right north face of Kailash. And then as you go around the bend, because there are mountains, they're hiding Kailash, as you're walking through, you go to this particular bend, and there in front of you, you go, wow. And there's Kailash. There's the north face of Kailash that you see in photographs, you see on videos, you see everywhere. My legs shuddered. I feel it now. I'm talking to you, and I still feel, it just overwhelms you. You just sort of, you arrive there, you sort of say, wow, the aura, you just feel so amazing. It is where divinity is present, and you feel that. And it's not easy to describe, but the body tells you, and you carry on walking, and then there's rivers streaming down from Kailash, the tributaries of Ganges, which is going to start from there. As you're walking through, I saw Raji and Rek had already arrived there before me. And I saw them, and tears down the eyes. You're there together at the foothills of Kailash. This is something you wanted to do. You've been preparing for it, and you're there, and you feel, wow, I'm here, and I'm here with people who are so important in my life. Gives you the goose pimples, throughout. You're sort of there, and you're just loving it. And I couldn't cuddle Raji enough, and Rekha, and I thought, wow, we were there, and then Rekha, being Rekha, took a camera out and said, photographs, please, and that was great.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it just hearing you talk about it, and obviously this episode is going to be in the audio format, but I can see the visual reaction, Navin, from you. And, I feel excited for you and the way that you've described this entire experience, which just sounds so beautiful. And to have done it with your wife and your son sounds magnificent. I mean, I was going to ask you, can you describe the emotions that you felt through it? But even just as you were sort of narrating that, I felt like you described those emotions. So I'm going to ask you actually what might be quite a tough question, but if you had to summarize your experience of doing the Kailash pilgrimage in one word, I'll give you maybe 2 words. What would you say?
It's difficult.
It is a tough question, I know.
Yeah. I mean, it was just awesome, undescribable, I guess. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you need many words, and perhaps there are no words. I don't know. It's one of those experiences which was, just you were wowed. You said, wow. It's just one of those. Uh,
Yeah, all striking and undescribable. I'll take that. I'll take those as words. Now, Navin, since you've been to Kailash again, haven't you? Since that first experience.
that's right, and I was so fortunate. So this was 2 years ago in
Mm-hmm.
24. Uh, so when we went up there, people who had Indian passports were allowed to go to Tibet because there's always been a friction between China and India. So now there was a group ready to go in 24, and China brought in a new regulation where people who had actually Indian passports couldn't go. So our leader could not make it. So she reached out to Rajiv, and because we'd got very close to the people there, and she said, "Raj, I need to take this group to Kailash with, you know, there's a group ready." And so Raj said, "Dad," and I said, "Yeah, I'm there for it." So we were so fortunate. So we did that journey again, and and having done it once, there were bits that you wanted to perhaps revisit in a different way, and we were able to do that. Obviously, the entire group was very different, so we interacted with different people. They were all from overseas, they were UK, US, and so on. And so there's another group of people we bonded with, uh, and we had actually done a bit more homework now, having done it first time around. You sort of said, well, there are a couple of things we want to do special. So one of the special things Krutika, we did was, so when we got to Kailash second time around, because the first time around we'd come out during the night, at sort of 2 o'clock in the morning, so the first night we were there to actually see Kailash in a different, in the moonlight. And it was just great. But I remember at the time, my first journey, that I'd looked up and it was so, so cold at the time. So I didn't stay there too long. But I looked up and I saw this aura of stars. You could see Milky Way, you could see planets. I mean, millions of stars. And you were looking at the sky and you were saying, wow, look at this. I've never seen that before. I mean, I've seen that in Sri Lanka and I've seen that in other parts of the world, but this was just unbelievable. So the second time round, I took a special camera and I said, right, I'm going to capture the image. And I actually took laid on the floor, gazing at the sky. I mean, again, the temperature was minus 10 or 12, but, I just wanted to take it all in. And we had one
Yeah.
of the guys who had come from US, and he was very, very good at cameras and what have you. And we captured the whole of the Milky Way, on the lens. And it was just fantastic. It was just phenomenal. The parikrama is normally 3 days, yeah? So the second day uh, is what regarded as the most difficult. Because what then happens is that you actually leave Kailash and you go round Kailash. And again, there are lots of mountain ranges, and that is a steep uphill climb. You're actually going up further up. And I remember that being so, so difficult to do. And I got on a horse at that stage. And even the horses, I could see was struggling to get up there. And it is a terrain which, again, changes because of the weather conditions, heavy snowfall. So when we were there was snowfall 2 days earlier.
Oh,
So
wow.
the thing was slippery and difficult to walk through.
So was it a different time of year that you went second time round compared to the first? So different season or?
Slightly, slightly. So we were perhaps a bit later, literally by 2 weeks, yeah. But things change literally by the day, yeah. I mean, sometimes you could get stuck for 3, 4 days because of blizzards or heavy snowfall or whatever, and
Hmm.
you can't move. And it literally changes. So, you're watching the weather all the time. The journey was a bit more difficult, trying to get up. And as you go up, you get to the top, and then you have to walk down. You can't even jump on a horse because walking down, the horses are not allowed to take people down because it's very slippery. And that, I remember, was the most difficult part for me uh, because, you're steep and, you have to walk slowly, I took my Nordic walking sticks with me and I was sort of managing that. And then as I was about to just go down the hill, a horse walked past me, and the stuff there was back on the back of the horse pushed me slightly, and I fell. And because I
Oh.
had my Nordic sticks in both hands, they were locked into my thumbs. I, I I was able to stop it, but I couldn't get up. Then some
Oh,
people saw me and came around and what have you. But walking down, I remember, was very, very difficult. A couple of places I had to get on my bum to slide down because I just couldn't walk down.
would you say that the second time round was harder for you than the first time?
I suppose what I'm saying is that I was much older, 4 or 5 years older than,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, number
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Number two, I think the weather conditions were slightly different and therefore it made it a bit difficult, yeah. Uh, because it does change. I mean, you think this is the terrain I walked on, but it doesn't look the same sometimes because, water has washed it away or the snow falls or, rains, what have you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I found I suppose, slightly more challenging.
I've climbed Mount Batur in Bali, and
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
certainly found climbing down, well, climbing down's not the right word, is it? Coming down, rather, a lot harder and more challenging on the knees as
On the
well.
knees, yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
yeah, and I can only imagine, obviously, when you're a little bit older and the weather isn't great. I mean, we got quite a nice clear day for us, but if it's snowy or slippery, that just adds to the challenge. I mean, how did your body feel after that kind of experience? Did you have a recovery period?
So, I mean, the recovery. So that first, so second day evening, we arrived at the quarters, which were basic, and all I wanted to do was just lie down and sleep. And the team leader said, no, you got to do your pratna, you got to do your prayers and have a bite to eat. And I didn't, I had my jacket and my everything, my hat and everything. I just went straight to sleep. And body recovered after 3 4 hours. But the next day, because you'd done it, you are absolutely fantastic. You felt good. Uh, I mean, yeah, I mean that the tiredness didn't remain. It was you were just tired, that evening, that night. I mean, everybody,
Yeah.
but everybody I remember. I mean, they came back and you could sort of see they were exhausted. And the thing is, it
Mm.
is the air, Krutika. So in fact, I guess when we went first time around, a third of the people actually came back from after the first day because they just found the air very difficult, uh,
Yeah.
because the oxygen level had dropped quite a lot. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
what makes
Yeah.
it even more difficult. So you got the terrain, you got the weather
Hmm.
conditions, but it is actually the oxygen. The air is much thinner.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So one more question before we move on to, I know, another exciting
Hmm.
adventure you've
Hmm.
had. What, at the moments when you were experiencing those difficulties to keep going, I think you mentioned on day two it was the most challenging for you. What was the self-talk in your head that kept you going?
I just say that I can do it. I can do it. Shiva is with me. My divinity is there. I'm getting closer to divinity. It is something that I wanted to do. So I think that's egging you on. So you're just saying, no, I can do this. And the amazing thing was, so second day around, so my wife did a smart thing. She had her horse companion with her, so he was taking her. I started to do it myself. I thought I'd just give it a shot. So she's waiting there for me. She got there an hour before me, and she's wondering where am I. And I asked her the same question. And she said it was just that I actually am so glad that I got this opportunity to do this. I motivated myself to keep on doing it.
Amazing, amazing. And what an incredible adventure that you've experienced not once but twice. But I also know that last year you visited Kumbh, which I kind of just want to touch on briefly because, last year in particular, the Kumbh was quite a fascinating event, wasn't it? I mean, it only happens, is it every 12 or 25 years? I can't remember the exact detail because I must admit I'm a little bit removed from it. But for anyone that doesn't know what the Kumbh is, can you firstly just start by explaining what is the Kumbh and what is the significance of it?
So it goes back to ancient times. The origin goes back to a clash between the gods and the demons. And whilst they were having this argument, for a kumbh. Kumbh is basically a pot, which is pot of that. And they were fighting for for pot of nectar, which guaranteed immortality. So obviously, gods didn't want the demons to have it. Yeah. So there was this battle going on, and Vishnu, uh, the generator, he basically managed to grab it. And as Vishnu was rushing away, 4 drops of this nectar fell on Earth, and in 4 different places, which are regarded as unique. Uh, and it happens that this is where also there are rivers. So these four places are regarded as holy places. And during the solar cycle, which happens every 12 years, the energy flow within this river is exceeded. As a result, it is believed that if you go and have a dip in those rivers at that point in time, that energy level enhances your mind and body. And if you do it
Mm.
collectively, in other words, the more people do it, the better it is for mankind. So Kumbh Mela is basically, Mela means collection. So where you collect,
Mm.
so every 12 years, there is a big event taking place in these four places. They take it in turns, so, in different places. And they also do nowadays every 6 years, just to try and actually give people a more chance, if they're getting older, etc. So there's half a Kumbh Mela, as they call it, every 6 years, and there's Kumbh Mela. But the one we went to last year was known as Maha Kumbh Mela, which happens every 144 years, 12 times 12. So it is when Jupiter, Sun, and Moon are in a particular, location in the solar system, and that creates a huge amount of energy, in the waters. And in fact, science has proved, so we had a team from NASA that did this experiment a while ago, and they confirmed that during that cycle, when so like we had a few months ago, if you remember, all the planets were lined up together. So during that cycle, during that period, the energy level within the rivers is quite great. And Prayagraj, where we went, you got Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati, the three, if you like, very sacred rivers in India, converge, and therefore the level of energy is enhanced millionfold. Yeah, and Krutika, that during that Kumbh Mela time, it is estimated approximately in the 42 days period, 600 million people. So
Oh,
our
wow.
population is 60 million, so 10 times the population of UK. 600 million people visited that place. I mean, when we were there, me and Raj and I went together. Uh, I reckon that particular day there was about 8 to 10 million people in this one place. Yeah, and it was just awesome. It was one of those things that you did, and you again you felt like, like Kailash journey. You felt the energy levels.
And what an incredible adventure to experience with your son again. That's fantastic. I mean, we could probably deep dive into Kumbh Mela as well, but just in the interest of time, I mean, you've been on a few of these pilgrimages. You mentioned starting in your early 30s with Haridwar, Rishikesh, right through to Mount Kailash, Kumbh Mela. Probably a difficult question, I suppose, but is there a particular place or pilgrimage or encounter that you've had that's really changed you personally or really sticks out for you in your memory or that you hold more dear than others?
I think Kailash was certainly one that brought me much closer to divinity. There's no question. It enhanced my spiritual belief that there is something out there. There's something which is quite magical, which is quite phenomenal. And it's so great to experience that. I also was very fortunate that I did with Rekha and Rajiv again. We did the Char Dham Yatra. So that involves going up the Himalayas in the Indian side, and you're going about
Wow.
11,000 feet above sea level, so approximately. But there are four holy places that you visit. It's like, the places are quite near Rishikesh, but you go different. Each one is like your four fingers. So you got to go to one and then come back and go to the next one and come back and so on. So there's Yanmotri, which is the river Yamuna, and then Gangotri, river Ganga, which is the source of Ganga, and then Kedarnath, which is another Shiva temple and very very Shiva Jyotirling. We have this 12 Jyotirlings. It's one of the Jyotirlings, and Badrinath. So we did that, and that was another epic journey. And again, I could talk for a month on it. And there, the second place we visited was Gangotri, which is the south of Ganges. Yeah, and Krutika. I mean, we were there for about 2.5 days, 3 days. We were there, and that is another one that sticks to mind. I mean, it's a place where you could go and stay for a good few days, and you could meditate, and it is so serene. I mean, it is just beautiful. You see lusciously green, terrain around you during the time we were there, waterfalls coming down, and it's just beautiful. It's just, you just feel special. And, a lot of ascetics, they live in the mountains, so we were very fortunate. We invited them for lunch, which we all prepared and served, But, you could sort of see, and they don't talk a lot, but we managed to speak to one. And you feel that, wow, isn't this amazing, And it sort of makes you humble. It takes you sort of say, well, this is what life is all about. If you had ego, it diminishes that. It just destroys it. You just think, wow. So I suppose those are the places, and there are a few others also. I think it had some impact, But each time the impact is it makes you a better person, I feel,
It's great. I think you described it earlier as well. You said, when you were at Kailash, it makes you feel you are just a speck. I think that was the word that you might have used, in the universe. And you're absolutely right. I think being out in nature, experiencing the beauty of the world, seeing the mountains. And for me, when I went to a trip to Africa and I did a safari, that it was that moment as well, like realizing that we are really quite small in the grand scheme of things. There's so much else out there. And it's fascinating. I think a lot of what you've done has allowed you to self-reflect, become aware. You mentioned the meditation. So through all these adventures, what have you learned, Navin, about yourself?
Well, I guess what I've learned is that I'm at peace and I enjoy being in these special places. That is what motivates me, if you like. That's what I enjoy. I mean, I enjoyed my work. I worked, as I said, throughout and everything. I enjoyed the family, as I mentioned, I'm a family person. But this is something is what appreciate life and appreciate the nature. Right? It's a difficult one. It's because you could try and detach yourself from other things to sort of attach to this thing. But I'm so much at peace. I mean, I remember all my journeys. It was just amazing. I was connected. I wasn't thinking about UK. I wasn't thinking about people out here at work. I was just connected there.
So you were in the present, isn't it? You were in the present moment, and that's so hard. That's so hard to do sometimes.
And I suppose that's what I've learned. That is, if I'm in that space, I enjoy it. I'm at peace. With myself.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, one final question I ask all my guests, and you can approach this however you want, is to ask, what journey are you on next, Navin?
So believe it or not, but at the moment, Kailash is on offer again. My son is going.
Oh,
He's taking a group in August.
Third time.
Third time. So he's definitely going. He's booked. Everything's done. So he's just sort of egging me and saying that, what do you fancy that? And I'm sort of thinking, So that could be it. But one of the places I'd really like to go, a bit spiritual, I guess, is really Vietnam and Cambodia. I haven't been. I actually want to see all the old temples, Shiva temples, I've been sort of reading about that. So that's definitely something that I'd like to do. But Krutika, there are so many other places in India. I mean, we've done a lot. So we've done, apart from what I've mentioned, so we've done Rameshwar, for example. We've done lots of pilgrimages in Gujarat, and you've done in Vrindavan and all that, So we've done loads but there are still so many more. Other interests, I mean, I do Africa a lot, because, I was born there and I go back and I got family there, friends there. So that's great, places like Machu Picchu, I don't know. So there's a lot to choose from.
Lots of options then for you, Navin, and what an exciting journey that you have ahead. If you do go to Kailash for the third time as well, that would be fantastic.
I'm sort of certainly tempted. But as I was talking, I was just thinking that first day I can manage, I feel. Second day is the one that I'm thinking, But look, who knows,
Precisely. Or maybe Vietnam, Cambodia, those would be great as well to visit. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast, Navin. It's been absolutely amazing learning about your spiritual adventures.
Well, thank you for asking me to join your podcast. And it was great. I relived the whole journey. Isn't that fantastic, I mean, I felt it. I felt it as I was talking about it, and it was great, And no, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Journeys with Krutika. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and share. I'd love for you to hit the follow button wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a journey that you want to share, email me at journeyswithkrutika journeyswithkrutika@gmail.com, or reach out via my socials. I'm on Instagram and TikTok. Just search Journeys with Krutika, because your journey is extraordinary.